네, 월가 트레이더 버니의 미국 주식 시간으로 돌아왔습니다. 미국도 지금 현재 1분기 실적 시즌이 진행이 되면서 실적에 따라서 울고 웃는 기업들이 나오고 있는데요. 관련돼서 뉴욕 증시 상황 정확하게 이야기를 해주실 내용들 전달받아 보도록 하겠습니다. 지금 바로 만나보시죠.
When we think about the market in general, what we have to realize is, and we've talked about sentiment, and we've talked about stocks within different sectors and how they're performing, and we've talked about professional investors and individual investors and how well they're correlated. But what we also want to think about is, because this is an economic activity that's kind of in flux right now, whether we're going to have additional interest rate increases, how significant this expansion of the Russian-Ukraine conflict is going to go on. So what we really want to think about is, what are things that we need to continue to monitor? And I still want to talk about, this is a chart I've shown before, okay? The dark blue line is the new orders by purchasing managers in all different aspects of our economy. So whether they're buying, whether they're anticipating to be able to sell more products, so they're buying more product, so they're having new orders, or they realize that we're not selling enough product, economic activity is slowing down or even going negative maybe, and they're not buying, and so they're cutting back on their new orders. So what we're having right now, and this is what we need to think about. If we take a look at this line right here, we can say this is where we have a growth slowdown. And then we turn around and we do better. We go deep into this, and those are symptomatic of recessions. So what we'd like to see is, can we hold on into here on the light blue line where the risk on, risk off holds on, and do the new orders hold to a certain level, slow down some, clearly they've slowed down, but not go into a significant contraction in new orders. So this is a chart we want to continuously monitor over time. Here's an interesting chart, and if you think about it, if you're the company insider, you're the president, you're the chairman of a company, you're a director, on the board of directors of a company, you're the chief financial officer, you're one of the heads of some division, significant division within that company, you're qualified as a corporate insider. And we obviously monitor the insider purchases, and it's public information when insiders make purchases, because they're not supposed to take advantage of inside information and to be able to buy stock because of inside information. So they buy stock theoretically because they realize that their stock price is really attractively priced. And if anybody knows that company's stock better than the company insiders, nobody knows it better than them. So when they buy, and they buy in significant quantities and across the board in terms of many, many buyers of all the different companies are doing it at the same time, that's a huge piece of information. So what we can see here, okay, is in 2018, they had a great deal of buying where we sold off about 10% in the stock market. And we anticipated back then higher interest rates that we didn't really get. The Fed backed off and kept providing liquidity. Then we had COVID hit, and look at the amount of insider buying that happened during COVID. Those prices went down so significantly, and those management teams at so many different industries bought their own stock. Okay, now we're seeing a price decline. But what I'm a little bit concerned about is, why aren't they buying their own stock in significant quantities yet? If we know that 9% of the technology stocks are above their 50-day moving average, and 91% of those technology stocks are below their 50-day moving average, we should think, hey, aren't these prices really attractive? But we're not seeing that yet from corporate insiders. Finally, what I want to talk about here is what we've had right now is we've had a significant move in the price of crude oil. We also have a concern that we're going to have a significant amount of interest rate increases over time. I think what's going on is going to change that view, and we're not going to anticipate all these interest rate increases. I always thought something was going to happen, and the Fed was not going to restrict liquidity as bad as everybody thought they would. What we know is that we've had recessions. We've had many, many recessions over the course of the last, I don't know, say 50 years. Not all recessions have a 50% increase in crude oil prices. But so far, every time that we've gone up 50% in crude oil prices, and by the way, and a side effect that interest rate increases occur coincidental to that. But every time we've gone up 50% increases in crude oil prices, we have had recessions. How long they are, the magnitude of those recessions, they're all different. But one of the things that if we're bullish on the market, what we'd like to see is a growth slowdown and not a recession. Recessions mean usually that the stock market goes down more than 20%. What we have right now is we have this 50% rally. But we have the 50% rally for interesting reasons, okay? When President Trump was running the country, we were producing much more crude oil and natural gas than we currently are right now. He was encouraging all sorts of production on federal lands. The Keystone Pipeline was being built, and he was all in favor of that Keystone Pipeline coming in and providing oil. And basically what we were then able to do was we were self-sufficient by ourselves, and we could export oil, which we had never done before. Biden comes in. First day, he shuts down the Keystone Pipeline. He slows down production on federal lands. And even before any of this happened, immediately after the election, oil prices started going up. And oil prices were going up not because there was more demand for it, but because we were restricting the available supply. Now that we've got all these other different events and the Russian-Ukraine and whether we can bring that natural gas to Europe, all those other different events that are occurring that are compounding this, that's why prices have gone up by 50%. Now, is Biden going to reopen the federal lands and be much more aggressive in allowing the United States to push more oil out into the system? Or is he going to go like he's been going to Venezuela and Iran and trying to buy oil from countries that we are not friendly with at all, and they do not like us? Yet we're still trying to do that. He's still trying to appeal to the climate-concerned section of our country that they want low carbon emissions. Well, he's going to find out that eventually we're going to have to turn down the heat on that low carbon emissions and be able to start to put more energy out into the system that we generate within the United States. We've got an election coming up, a midterm election coming up in November of this year. The Democrats are in power. The Democrats are the people that allegedly were more concerned about climate conditions changing and all that, and low carbon versus high carbon. And they're the ones that if they continue on this pace with high degree of food inflation and a high degree of energy inflation, the party in power never holds power with those two things going on. So either something's going to change or the whole Democratic Party is going to be swept out of office, and the Republicans are going to control the Senate and the House of Representatives again and have a strong foothold on who's going to be the next president 2 more years out.